Hiya, welcome back to part 2 of my rebuild videos. I'm going to take a walk around this first and I'll show you what I've done so far, where we're up to. Let's have a look. There's the engine bay, lots of stuff gone on in there. We'll come back to that a bit later. So I left you last time, we're going to build the doors up with all the components, so let's take a stroll round and I'll take you through what I did with the doors. So a lot of time was spent restoring these original opening quarter lights. Car was from Portugal. These were fitted as standard to the 1300L that it was, but they were goosed. The outer frame is riveted to the main door bar, and that was all floppy, so I welded that up. The bottom of the door bar, as usual, was all rotted out, so I replaced all that. The channel glass, which is a really thin U section, this stuff here, that was all rotted by the hinges here at the top and down at the lower pivot. So I had to fabricate some new U section and splice that in. So did all that, got the thing painted. I got some new opening quarter light seals which are different to the fixed seals. They've got lips on the inside and the outside to stop the weather getting in. I had to get them from Australia. That cost me a fortune in import taxes. Thank you very much, HMRC. This is where the catch goes on the quarter light. So I had to fashion that out of stainless steel, really thin, 0.5mm thick, and curl it round the door bar, which was a bit of a game. I had to completely replace these. So here's my originals. I got two different shape pivots. You can see one's rounded and one's chamfered, a bit odd. The inner handles are really quite crusty, and the nuts weren't so bad, they could live again. But that pivot there is supposed to look like that. That's where the spring goes in. There we go, looks a bit better in focus, doesn't it? So yeah, that was completely snapped off. Now that is only cast aluminium, which is then chrome plated, and it's really soft, and I had no way of repairing that. I searched and searched and searched for months and I could not find any anywhere. I found some of these brand new from Motormobile in Germany. I couldn't find the little push pin which goes in there. I only had one of them. So I drew them up and I had to get them made myself. Like I say, this was got a pair of these brand new from Motormobile, nice and shiny. But these parts, it's quite a complicated but little bit of engineering, to be fair, a lot of milling operations. So my good friend Robin machined these for me after I sent him a drawing of exactly what I wanted. They're made out of steel, which I then chrome plated. I had a new pair of securing nuts, turned out of steel and milled, and had them chrome plated, and also these tiny little button things. They're brand new, machined from solid, and then I had them chrome plated. And then I could eventually fit them in. So let's flip that over and show you. And there we have it. It's holding its new green tinted glass. You pull the latch, push the little knob, and open your window light pops. And after all that, months and months of research and lots of hours put into these, and not a little bit of money either, to be fair, buying and machining and buying cakes for the lads who did the bits for me, I decided not to use them. Instead, I went for the fixed quarter lights, which needed new seals, new glass because that's different, and a new door bar. I fitted the fixed ones simply because I just prefer the look. The glass is a lot bigger, it's a lot more open, lets a lot more light in. I think it's just a cleaner look, which is what I'm after. So yeah, so those things over there, I'll probably hang on to them, but I might sell them off. Someone will want them, I think. But before I could fit that new quarter light and door bar, I had to put the door together. So let me take you through that. Okay, so I quickly learned that the door has got to go back together in a very specific order, because there are quite a few bits that you can't fit until you fitted another bit earlier on. So that was a bit of a learning curve. I took these doors apart 6 years ago when I bought the car, stripped it down for the restoration, and 6 years later, like any bloke of my age, I forgot to put it back together again. So it took me a while to work it out, and I'll take you through the process now to save you the same grief that I had. Before we go any further, the keen-eyed amongst you will spot that this is a bit of a Frankenstein door. There's a panel welded in around there, up there, down there, and that's because this door was actually off a van. I think it must have been a Mark II van. The door was absolutely mint, genuine Ford door, no rust on it at all, so it was worth saving. And what I had to do was, the hinges are different. On a saloon, you've got a female hinge down there and a male up there, and on a van you've got two females. So I had to cut the top hinge off and weld it onto this door, and this panel area here is different. So again, we sectioned it out of the Mark 1 door, of the van door rather, and spliced it in and welded it up, and ta-da, a mint Mark 1 two-door door lives again. So for the order of putting it back together, first thing you need to do is get the door check strap in while you've got access without all the gubbins in the way, and you can get your arm in this hole here and reach around. You can fit the door check strap, 2 bolts there. Then you need to get to the stuff on the exterior. So if you're running a door mirror, you need to fit the door mirror. You also need to fit the outer door handle, and if you're using one, an outer door lock. With that in place, what you need to do then is fit the seal to your quarter light glass, shove that into place, and feed the door bar in through that window channel. Put it upright, but leave it there. Don't secure it yet. Okay. Then what you need to do is you need to fit the door latch mechanism. So this bit here, you need to put it in that position there so it fits through the hole. Pop it in, secure it with the 3 screws, and connect it up to your door handle. Connect all the rods and stuff up to the door handle. When you're fitting this latch, you have to fit the latch with all 3 rods connected. So that's the rod up to your door push pin, the rod that goes to the interior release handle, and the rod that goes from the inner door handle. That stays on the inner door handle, and you clip it into the latch once you're in. So with that all fitted, your next step then is to fit the seals. So you have one seal that runs from there all the way down. It's the same U-channel seal down here into your little extension piece that clips in the bottom and screws in with that screw. So fit your extension piece, run the door seal, the U-channel in, and also fit the seal to your door bar, which comes down here and is secured on that screw. But don't fit that screw yet, because you need to tilt that door bar like that. Your glass stays in nice and snug, your door bar is tilted, and then you slip your glass in the glass can go all the way in, down the channel, and it sits at the bottom of the door. And leave it there. With the glass at the bottom of the door, you can then fit the clips for the inner and outer weather seals. Once the clips are fitted and you've fitted and trimmed your new seals, fit your seals, put your glass up, in, and then you can slide your window regulator in. This bar here, which clips into this, around there. When that's in place, then you can secure the regulator, you can fit your interior release handle, you can fit speakers and your central lock-in and anything else superfluous before you put your door card on and you finally put your handles on. And that's your door built up. Now, I had a real game with these seals and clips, so let me help you out and save you a world of pain, and I'll tell you what the problem is there. So, clips and seals. Let's talk about clips and seals. When you go on eBay or any of the classic Ford sites, when you're looking for the outer weather strip seal, the clips that hold this piece in, they'll sell you this fella, okay, for a Mark 1. Now, it's actually a Mark 2 Escort clip, and there's a problem with it, okay. It is way too long. That tang there sticks out too far, and these edges, your glass ends up running down this edge, and these corners are really bloody sharp, and it's going to scratch your glass. Now, what I've tried is shortening it by trimming it down with a Dremel and rounding the corners off, okay, but it still touches the glass on the inside. Let me show you what I mean. So this is the doorbell on the underside. You can see the glass moving, okay, and that is one of those clips there that I've rounded off and shortened, but it still contacts the glass. And if you imagine it had those sharp edges on, when you wind your window up, I'm not going to wind it up because I don't want to scratch my bloody glass, but that's the problem, and you can see them through there, okay. Now, what you actually need for a Mark 1 is this Ford part number here. If you can find them, you've got to be really lucky. Fortunately, I was really lucky. They're a lot shorter than the Mark II Escort clip, and when you look at them end on, that tang that sticks out is much less than the Mark II, so it doesn't contact your glass. I found a lovely bloke called Barry, and I was able to get a full packet of 25, or actually 24 off him. I only need 8 of the things, but so I'm sorted. So if you can find some, please search these out, and they are online in a few places. You've got to look for them. Similarly, the inner clip, lots of people will flog you this as both the inner and the outer clip, and you're going to have exactly the same problem. And the other problem is that the seal profile on a Mark 1 seal has that bump there, and that little ridge is designed to hold that bump. So these are the proper inner seal clips for a Mark 1. These are quite readily available if you look for them, but look at the pictures and don't just rely on the descriptions, because they'll try and flog you Mark II ones and say, oh, they'll fit, they'll do the job. Yeah, they'll fit. Yeah, they'll do the job, but they'll most likely damage your glass. Okay. Inner glazing seals. Now, buy them off eBay from Mk1 Escort and they'll flog you this. Okay. Here's a little section of it. Comes straight. It's very thin. It's very low profile, and it's not like the original. Okay, the original's got a moulded end on it. If you look at it in cross section, Okay, there's quite a step at the top. It's about 6mm thick, and you've got the little bobble on. You compare it to the one they'll flog you, and it's nothing like it. It's also not moulded at the end, so you have to cut it and slice it and give it a little kink up. And so on the door, it's going to look like this. It's a bit hard to tell when you're trying to video glass with reflections and stuff, but it's not actually touching the glass, right? It sits really low in the door. I'm about to kink it round, and because it sits so low in the door, you can see those clips from the inside, which looks a bit shit. If I compare it to the other door, this is with a proper seal fitted, and it's moulded at the end. My original seals from my Mk1 had gone absolutely rock hard, and they're all bendy, and when I tried to straighten it, warmed it up a bit, and it just snapped. You can't find them anywhere unless you look really hard, and I looked really hard and I found brand new ones, remanufactured. They're exactly like the original Ford ones. They're the same profile, got that same 1/4 inch step at the top, all moulded out of plastic with a felt on the side. And I got them from this place. It's called Rubber Seals Australia. There they are. Give them guys a shout and they'll send you them. And I bought new inners and outers for $243 shipped to the UK, which ends up at about 130 quid. Okay, outer weather strips. This is the original Ford one. You can see it goes brittle and hard and they chip out. The ones you can buy in the UK are really pretty good. In fact, they're bloody good replicas of the original, unlike the inner seal, which is a load of shit. The outer seals are a really faithful reproduction, but there is a little problem with them. At the end, the width is very narrow, and I bought 2 sets and they're both the same. And the problem that will give you is this. That's for the UK's supplied outer seal. It's a nice fit. It matches up the quarter glass seal. Comes along, but when you get to the end, it's too narrow and you end up with a rat hole. The lip of the seal falls in. Australia supply, they're a bit different. They've got like this extra moulding on, which isn't offensive, and it actually provides a nice flat seal across on the glass, and it doesn't fall in at the top. I've trimmed that just to make it look a bit better, and it stays wide right until the end, and you can trim it in where you want to trim it in. The problem is at the other end, it doesn't match that profile very well. So while Rubber Seals Australia's inner seals are wicked, their outer seals are better, but in a different way. So you need to sort of make up your mind, really. If I was going to buy them again, I probably wouldn't bother buying the outers from Australia. It's a lot of money, and the shipping isn't cheap, and there's a little advantage, but not a great one. So that's all the moaning with the seals and the clips over. Let's have a proper look at what I've been cracking on with the build. A lot of it's to do in here. Right then, after treating all the floor to the sand deadening, I needed something to go under the carpet, and that's this stuff, 8mm thick neoprene closed cell foam. Now, closed cell is the important bit. Unlike the original undercarpet foam you got in the Escorts, this doesn't absorb moisture like a sponge, hold it there and rot your floor out. This stuff is closed cell, so as the name implies, there's no bubbles in it, if you like, and it doesn't soak up water, it just runs straight off. It's nice and thick, it's cheap, it's very light, it's almost flyweight, and it goes on really nice and gives a nice substrate for your nice carpet. With that done, I fitted the electrics. So the main harness goes across the bulkhead from left to right. All starts with this fuse board that I made, and the panel behind it covers up all the connections to the bulkhead where the fuel lines go through and the battery cable goes through. So all that's hidden behind and safe and protected out of the way. Here we've got multiple relays, multiple fuses. The original Ford came with like 6 fuses and 1 relay. All the current went straight through the switches, which is why the switches always burn out, and the electrics were particularly unreliable. I've got 16 fuses protecting each circuit. All the relays you see here and some in the back of the car, they protect all the switches, and all the current, all the high draw current goes through a relay as it should be. On the passenger side inner A post, we've got the Link ECUs up there. This is a speed controller for my electric power steering, so it's speed sensitive, not on one of them little knobs. It automatically adjusts with how fast you're going. And the battery cable is a 50 amp cable. It's nice and flexible. I actually use welding cable, 50 amp welding cable. It's well up to the job. It's multi-strand, yeah, handle a lot of current draw, and it's clipped along with the fuel lines all along the floor to the back of the car. It goes up under the back of the back seat and into the fuel tank area. Before I get you there, let's have a quick chat about how I try to get it nice and neat and secure. Now, I have a morbid hatred of self-tappers, particularly self-tappers going through the panels of the car straight to the outside where rust is going to start. And let's be honest, these things don't need any help starting to rust. So I started with a bunch of these guys, just cheap alloy clamps off eBay. But if I use that, I'd have to screw through it and obviously screw into the floor of the car, which I don't want to do. So to get where I needed to go, I started off with a block of steel, drilled 2 holes in it, split it, and end up with this. When you split it, you get one of them, and that is mould steel with an internal thread that I've drilled and tapped. And then I welded these into the car at different stages all the way through to keep the run nice and neat. And when you split one of those cheap alloy clamps in half and just use the top bit, you end up with that. So no holes in the floor, no horrible self-tappers, and its fuel lines are neatly clipped front to rear of the car. Now this is the battery cable running from front to rear, and to secure the electrics and the brake pipes, I made these. These are a mild steel saddle, okay, and put a weld through the 2 holes, and then I can secure anything with a simple cable tie. Again, no self-tappers going through your metalwork, nice and neat, really effective. To make them, and I've used dozens of these all over the car, so no self-tappers and no P-clips and stuff. I got my pencils out, did another drawing, and asked a pal to make me this press forming tool. It fits in my voice. There's an inner and an outer, and they squash together when you squeeze your voice together. Cut a piece of steel about 50mm wide, put it through my little press tool in my voice, and I end up with that. And section them off, load, bang, and I end up with loads of these, which are then puddle welded to the shell, obviously before I painted it. And those are my clipping points for my battery cable and my electrics. So while I'm pointing the camera at the back of the car, more specifically the boot, let's go and have a mooch in there, eh? Okay, here we are in the boot. Obviously with the fuel lines fitted, I could fit the petrol tank. And before I fitted the petrol tank, I lined the skin of the boot with some more sound deadening. Concentrating, because it's the boot, I'll just concentrating mostly on the tubs, which are going to get most of the noise from stones being thrown up by the tyres, and the rear quarters, which are big, large panels with no support, so they're the things that are going to drum, and that'll cut down a lot of noise. Where the old spare wheel used to be is now where my fuel pump and fuel filter live. It's a Bosch 044 competition motorsport type pump with a Bosch filter. There's a little red pre-filter there to save the pump from any debris coming out the petrol tank. And if you looked at some of my earlier videos during the pre-build and the dry build, I welded these shelves in that I made in the boot, and then this wooden shelf, which is going to be carpeted, goes in, covers up the fuel pump, stops any noise entering the cabin, and gives me somewhere to put a toolbox. We've got no more room. Over this side, where the original fuel tank used to live, I made some brackets up, and that's going to house the battery. Underneath the battery are a bunch of relays for things happening at the back of the car, the reversing light and the fuel pump and the heated rear window. So all those relays are local, right next to the battery. With the tank in properly, I just fit the boot. I could fit my twin fillers, so they're either side, and that pipe comes down straight into the side of the petrol tank at the rear. This is a overflow breather valve which goes down out underneath the floor of the car so it can breathe the fuel. Next thing to happen in the back is I've got to fit the front to rear electrics. They'll come through this hole here, pop down some more of these saddle clips that I'd welded in, showed you just a minute ago, and across the back of the car, and again some more saddle clips down there. Keeps electrics nice and neat. I suppose while we're talking about electrics, let's go and have a nose at them. So the harness is coming up, across behind the fascia, over to this area. I've got these bunch of connections here, which are going to go to my gauges, my auxiliary gauges, and my centre console. My power steering control unit, which is a Corsa B, is mounted to the heater, which I'm able to refit. I've also fitted my bias pedal box from Gartrack, so that's all in. All the brake lines are all plumbed in. Nose in there, it's a bit snug. Reservoirs are hooked up, and the brake lines are again run across the dash and go to my remote servo. Because I'm running a bias pedal box with separate master cylinders for the front and rear brakes, I'm using a dual servo, so one servo and 2 cylinders, so servo assistance to both front and the rear brakes. And let's pop under the bonnet for the last bit. So with the heater fitted and the 2 pipes poking through the bulkhead, I got busy again with the pencils, because this is the original little piece of trim panel. It's pressed tin, it's the original finish, zinc plated. I think they might have painted some of them, but it's a bit shit, isn't it, let's be honest, and it sort of spoils it. So I fucked that off, got busy with my pencils and drew this up. So this is out of billet aluminium. $3mm thick, and I think I'm going to get this anodised, and it's a much nicer solution than that shitty bit of tin. Let's go and have a look at how it looks on the car. So here we go. There's my nice machined piece of aluminium. Let's get this wire out of the way. Now I'll get that anodised, stop it oxidising, look nice and trick. Obviously with the heater pipes coming through the bulkhead, I could fit my silicone heater hoses. While I was here and doing the electrics under the bonnet, now I've got the main harness through. I've repositioned the oxygen sensor. It's much closer to the turbo. It gets its readings much sooner, and it's the ideal place. Tried to keep the cable out of the way of the heat, so that goes up around the back of the engine. The pedal box is bolted in from this side instead of the bolts coming through with nuts on the outside. Looked a bit of a mess. So it's bolted through from this side because I welded some captive nuts onto the pedal box. I was able to fit my wasp alternator. That's on a lowered bracket. Let's have a closer look at that, eh? So the alternator is a wasp 170 amp unit. It's a billet alternator in the style of an old Lucas alternator, but it's got the latest Nippon Denso electronics inside, so it's much more reliable. It gives a much higher output for its size than it normally would do. So that's pretty trick. So it's mounted on an Embo Engineering billet alloy alternator drop bracket, which drops the alternator down by about 2 inches and out by about 2 inches, keeping the alternator away from the turbo and the exhaust manifold, because you don't want all that heat near your expensive electrics. That's my electronic boost controller, and that's plumbed in to the Turbo Smart actuator on the T34 turbo. Some more of my funky saddles have been welded to the shell to carry the electrics round. Over to the inlet side. The inlet side looks really busy. It is really busy. There's lots of stuff done there, but I've been able to fit my inlet plenum properly. All the injectors are in. I've redone the coil wiring, and the coils are now mounted on these lovely billet aluminium brackets from XYZ Fabrications. They do a really nice job, and hold the coil nice and securely and in the correct orientation for the wiring to run out, and nice and neatly around the back. My Bailey catch tank and breather is all mounted. I've got the throttle body on, which is a larger throttle body off the latest Escort Cosworth turbo, and that's pretty much it really. On the bonnet now is all done. The only things that need to be doing is to fit the intercooler and the radiator and all the cooling pipes. Before I do that, I've got to fit the suspension, and before I do that, I need to fit the column. So the next thing to go in will be to fit my electronic power steering unit, which is a Corsa B from around 2000. My own bracket at the back that mounts to the roll cage and the dash bar going across. This bit here I made myself. That's a shortened column, upper column from a Mark II Escort, and a Mark II ignition switch, and I'll be using Mark II switchgear. I'll tell you why all that is in the next video. New lower column, so that's got to go in next. So that's pretty much where we are. Like I say, they done a lot of work since the last update. I'm sorry I'm not coming so quick, but if I'm brutally honest, I have a much more fun time putting my car together than I do making YouTube videos. But I get a lot of questions and asking for a lot of updates from the people who subscribe, and thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Thanks for liking the videos. If you've missed anything, please go and have a look at the rest of my channel, and you can see everything right from the start, all the pre-build and the dry build videos, the paint job, and then the start of the rebuild series. This is going to be the end of part 2. Hopefully in part 3 I'll show you I'll be fitting the rack and the column and probably the rest of the suspension. I might be able to get the cooling pack in and that gets us like a really good portion along the way to getting finally to fire the thing up and hear it running. And that's going to be a good day. So yeah, thanks for watching. Give us a like. I love to read your comments, and I always respond to them when I can. So any thoughts you got, or anything you want to tell me, or anything you like, anything you don't like, it's all good. Just please stick it in the comments and let me know what you think. And meanwhile, I'm going to go and shut that dog up.